The courtroom was cold, not just in temperature but in feeling, an unforgiving place where silence could crush as much as words. Clara James sat rigid, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the judge whose voice had just sliced through the air. Get out! The command was less a sentence, more a verdict wrapped in dismissal. The judge's eyes bore into her as if seeing her was a mistake he wished to undo. The weight of history pressed down, centuries of voices silenced, faces erased, feelings invalidated. Clara swallowed hard but did not flinch. Her voice was quiet but carried steel. "I'm here to do my job." "Your job," the judge echoed, voice dripping with condescension, "is to control your emotions. This court is not a theater." There it was again. Too emotional. A phrase as old as injustice itself, weaponized to silence women, to dismiss black voices, to keep power firmly in place. She met his gaze, steady and unwavering. "Caring about justice isn't an emotion. It's a responsibility." The courtroom seemed to hold its breath. A faint rustle of papers, a clerk's hesitant glance in her direction. The judge leaned forward, fingers tapping the bench. "Objectivity is required here. Emotional displays hinder proceedings." Clara's fingers clenched briefly, then relaxed. "Objectivity requires honesty. Ignoring bias is not objectivity." A murmur stirred among the spectators. Some shifted uneasily. Others watched with something close to admiration. "You are here to present facts," the judge said slowly, "not feelings." Her response was calm, deliberate. "Facts without context are incomplete. Emotions often reveal what facts alone cannot." The judge's jaw tightened. "Enough. Present your testimony." She nodded, breathing deep to steady. The fire beneath her composed surface. "I have found irregularities," Clara began. "Funds diverted, records altered, a pattern of concealment." Her voice was measured but carried the weight of truth. She detailed accounts, numbers that told stories of greed and betrayal. The judge listened, his stern facade flickering ever so slightly. When she finished, Clara looked directly at him. "Justice demands more than silence. It demands courage to confront uncomfortable truths." A silence settled, thick and charged. The judge's voice softened, almost reluctantly. "We will review your findings." Clara's nod was slight, but resolute. As she gathered her papers, a wave of quiet respect swept the room. Not loud or proclaimed, but felt. Outside the courtroom, the city's noise buzzed indifferent, but inside, Clara carried a new weight, a mixture of exhaustion and hope. Her phone vibrated, a message from Marcus. "You stood strong." "Proud of you," she replied. "The fight continues." Later, in a small conference room, Clara sat with her legal team. The faces were familiar, but marked by weariness and determination. "We made an impact," one lawyer said. "But they'll come back harder, more subtle." Clara's eyes sharpened. "We meet them with quiet strength. Our voices don't need to shout, they need to be heard." Marcus leaned forward. "Justice through restraint, that's your power. Hold the line." They sat together in the dim light, the weight of the battle pressing, but also the promise of change whispering. Days blurred into weeks. Clara's work became a steady rhythm, documenting, presenting, defending. Each step met resistance cloaked in polite words, but she responded with unshakable composure. One afternoon, Rick, the security guard who once watched her with suspicion, paused by her desk. His usual stern expression softened. "I misjudged you," he admitted quietly. Clara looked up, surprise flickering. "It wasn't easy," he said, "but you've earned my respect." She gave a small smile. "Thank you. We're all learning." The moment was brief but profound. A silent acknowledgement of change. Later, the board approved partial funding for Clara's project. It was not the full victory, but a foothold. Standing outside, she looked at the city skyline, endless towers shimmering with possibility and challenge. She thought of the generations before her, those silenced, dismissed, erased. Her voice was theirs now, steady and unyielding. The fight was far from over, but with every quiet word, every calm refusal to be pushed aside, she reshaped the narrative. Her presence was a testament to power, not shouted, but claimed with grace. Justice, she had learned, was not always loud. Sometimes it was the quiet insistence that no one would be ignored again. Clara sat at the edge of the conference room, the low hum of the city filtering through the window behind her. Papers lay scattered across the table, evidence, reports, charts, each one a piece of a puzzle she was determined to solve. The weight of the past weeks pressed on her, but she kept her posture straight, her face calm, even as exhaustion threatened to creep in. Marcus slid into the seat beside her, his eyes soft with understanding. "How are you holding up?" She glanced at him, a faint smile touching her lips. "Every day is a new test. Some moments I want to scream, others I just want to disappear." He nodded. "That's the fight. It's not just the work. It's the system trying to wear you down." Clara's fingers tapped a slow rhythm on the table. "They don't see the hours spent doubting myself, the moments I question if I'm enough." Marcus leaned forward, voice gentle but firm. "You are enough, more than enough, and they know it even if they pretend otherwise." A silence settled between them, filled with unspoken struggles. Then Clara spoke again, voice low but fierce. "I'm not just fighting for this audit. I'm fighting for every voice that's been called too emotional, every face that's been erased." Marcus's eyes held hers. "And that fight is far from over, but you're not alone." Across the table, the door opened. Jamal stepped in, carrying a folder thick with new evidence. "They pushed back harder today, tried to discredit the reports." Clara took the folder, flipping through it quickly. "They're scared, because we're close." Jamal nodded. "We have to keep steady. They want us to break." She set the folder down, eyes burning with resolve. "Then we'll break this silence instead." Outside, the city's noise was a distant roar, but inside this room, a quiet revolution was building, one steady heartbeat at a time. The courtroom was quiet, except for the soft rustle of papers and the occasional cough. Clara James stood poised, her posture unyielding, despite the invisible weight pressing down on her. The judge's gaze lingered longer than necessary, cold and calculating, as if searching for any sign of weakness. "You may proceed," he said, voice clipped but heavy with unspoken skepticism. Clara took a measured breath, steadying herself. "Thank you, Your Honor." Her voice was calm, steady, a contrast to the storm she felt within. The audit uncovered significant irregularities in the financial records of the defendant corporation. Specifically, funds were diverted without proper authorization, and several documents appear to have been deliberately altered to conceal these transactions. She paused briefly, letting the weight of her words settle over the room. Eyes fixed on her, the judge's expression unreadable. "These actions represent a clear breach of fiduciary duty," she continued, "and the evidence indicates a pattern of intentional misconduct designed to defraud stakeholders and evade accountability." The prosecutor shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The spectators leaned in, sensing the gravity of her testimony. Clara met the judge's eyes, unwavering. "It is my duty as a federal auditor to present these findings truthfully and without bias. Any attempt to undermine this responsibility on the basis of my demeanor or perceived emotionality is both unjust and irrelevant to the facts at hand." A heavy silence followed. The judge's features softened marginally, a crack in the armor of authority. "Very well," he said quietly. "We will take your testimony under advisement." Clara nodded, a subtle but resolute affirmation. She gathered her documents, feeling a surge of quiet victory. Her presence, her voice, not loud or confrontational, but steadfast, had begun to carve space in a room designed to dismiss. Outside, the afternoon sun cast long shadows over the courthouse steps. Clara stood for a moment, breathing in the crisp air, aware that the path ahead was still steep. Yet within her burned a steady flame, fed by resilience and the unyielding pursuit of justice. Clara stepped out of the courtroom and into the cool, late afternoon light, the noise of the city swelling around her like a tide. She paused on the courthouse steps, letting the world blur for a moment. The weight of the day settled into her bones, exhaustion mixed with a cautious hope. The judge's words had cut deep, but they hadn't silenced her. Her phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. "You held your ground, proud of you." She typed back slowly, "This is only the start." As she walked through the bustling streets, Clara's mind raced with the battles to come. The fight wasn't just about numbers or audits. It was about breaking down walls built on centuries of silence and dismissal. Each too emotional label was a chain she was determined to break. Later that evening, Clara met with her legal team in a cramped conference room. Faces familiar but marked with worry and determination. The room hummed with quiet tension. "We rattled the cage," one attorney said, voice low. "But they're circling. They'll push back harder." Clara nodded, voice steady. "Then we meet resistance with resilience. We don't shout, we hold firm. Our strength is in our truth, not in raising our voices." Marcus added, "Justice isn't a battle cry. It's a quiet force, persistent and unyielding." The team shared a look, the unspoken agreement forming. A bond stronger than any words. Days turned to weeks. Clara's work became a rhythm. Late nights, careful documentation, guarded conversations. The opposition was subtle but relentless. Whispered doubts, veiled threats, attempts to discredit. One afternoon, Rick, the security guard who once eyed her with suspicion, approached quietly. "I misjudged you," he said, voice low. Clara met. His gaze, surprise flickering. "You're stronger than I thought," he admitted. "I respect that." She smiled softly. "We all learn." The moment was brief but meaningful. A quiet shift, a crack in the wall. Then came the news. Partial funding approved. Not everything, but a foothold. Clara stood on the building's rooftop, the city sprawling beneath her like a living mosaic of hopes and challenges. The fight was far from over, but the path was clearer. Her voice, calm, composed, unwavering, had begun to rewrite the narrative. Justice, she understood now, was not always loud. Sometimes it was the quiet persistence that broke through. Silence. The following weeks folded into one another, each day a careful negotiation between hope and resistance. Clara's footsteps echoed down the marble hallways, her presence no longer a question, but a statement. She had carved her place in this space, not with volume, but with unwavering composure. Her office, once a quiet refuge, now hummed with activity. Legal briefs stacked on her desk, calls with colleagues and community leaders, meetings to strategize next steps. The burden was immense, but so was the determination. One evening, as the city lights flickered outside her window, Marcus appeared with a stack of new documents. "They're pushing back," he said softly, trying to undermine the audit with technicalities. Clara nodded, eyes steady. "Then we tighten our case. Facts, evidence, and patience." He smiled faintly. "You're a quiet storm." She chuckled, the sound brief but genuine. "I've learned to weather the silence." At the next hearing, Clara presented her findings again, clear, concise, unshaken. The courtroom watched as she dismantled the defense's arguments with precision. Her voice held no anger, only the sharp edge of truth. Afterward, the judge offered a rare nod of acknowledgement. It was subtle, but to Clara it was a turning point. Outside, Jamal greeted her with a knowing smile. "You're changing the game," She looked ahead, the cityscape a tapestry of possibility, one step at a time. Her journey was far from over, but with every measured word and steady breath, Clara redefined strength. The power to speak without shouting, to claim justice through quiet resilience, was hers to wield, and the world was starting to listen. Clara sat alone in her office late into the night, the soft glow of her desk lamp casting long shadows over piles of documents. The city outside never truly slept, but inside these walls, a different kind of battle was being waged, one fought with patience, precision, and unyielding will. Her fingers traced the edges of the audit reports, each page a testament to months of tireless work. She thought of the courtroom, the judge's cold dismissal, the weight of bias masked as law, the whispered doubts from those who questioned her, not for what she'd found, but who she was. The silence in the room was thick, yet inside Clara, a quiet storm raged. She was exhausted but resolute. Every too emotional label had been a chain she refused to wear. Her phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. "You're not alone. Keep steady." She typed back, "This fight is bigger than me." For every voice silenced. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Jamal stepped in, folder in hand, eyes bright with urgency. "They're digging deeper," he said, "trying to discredit your findings with technical loopholes." Clara stood, determination steadying her voice. "Then we find the cracks in their armor. Facts don't bend to fear." Together, they pored over the new data, mapping every angle, preparing for the next confrontation. It was a game of endurance, but Clara's calm resilience was their greatest weapon. Weeks later, in another packed courtroom, Clara's testimony sliced through layers of obfuscation. Her voice remained measured, her composure unbroken. Each detail she presented was a nail in the coffin of deception. The judge's demeanor softened just enough for Clara to glimpse respect beneath the years of skepticism. As the session ended, a hush settled. The room had witnessed more than numbers. It had seen strength shaped in silence. Outside, the evening breeze carried the distant sounds of a city that still had much to change. Clara breathed deeply, knowing the journey was far from over. But with every quiet step, the walls were cracking. Her fight was no longer just hers. It was a movement awakening, slow and relentless. Clara entered the conference room, the faint buzz of whispered conversations greeting her like a wave. Faces turned, some nodding in quiet acknowledgement, others cautious, guarded. The room was charged, not just with anticipation, but with the weight of unspoken battles fought before her arrival. Marcus caught her eye and offered a small smile. "They're listening now," he said softly. Clara nodded, settling into her chair, the papers before her carefully organized. The stakes had never been higher, yet she carried herself with calm resolve. Her voice would be the steady drumbeat in a room, eager to drown it out. The lead attorney began, outlining the new findings, evidence unearthed through tireless scrutiny. Clara listened, preparing her moment. When it came, she spoke not with anger, but with clarity. "The data reveals a pattern," she said, eyes scanning the room, a deliberate effort to obscure truth and avoid accountability. She paused, letting the weight settle. "This isn't just numbers on paper. These are decisions impacting lives, communities betrayed by those in power." A silence followed, thick with recognition. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned in. An executive spoke, voice cautious. "Your approach is meticulous, but the opposition will question your motives." Clara met his gaze steadily. "Motives matter less than facts, and facts don't lie." The room softened, the tension easing just enough. As the meeting adjourned, Marcus leaned close. "You're changing the narrative," she smiled, exhaustion mingling with hope. "One truth at a time." Outside, The city's pulse was steady, relentless, a reflection of the quiet revolution unfolding within these walls. Clara's journey was far from over, but each step forward was a victory etched in dignity and unwavering strength. Clara stood by the window of her office, the city lights flickering like distant stars against the darkening sky. The quiet hum of traffic below was a constant reminder of the world moving forward, indifferent, relentless. But inside this room, a different kind of movement was taking shape. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jamal. "They're planning. Another hearing. Date set," she sighed, the tension tightening in her chest. Another battle awaited, another test of patience and strength. The opposition was relentless, but so was she. Later that evening, Clara met with her legal team in a dimly lit room, papers spread across the table like pieces of a fragile puzzle. Each report, each testimony, was a thread in the tapestry of truth they were weaving. "We need to anticipate their tactics," Marcus advised. "They'll try to wear us down." Clara nodded. "We meet them with facts and composure. Our power is in resilience, not rage." Her voice was calm, but beneath it burned a fierce determination. Every too emotional label had taught her the value of quiet strength, of speaking truth with steady clarity. The hearing day arrived. Clara entered the courtroom with measured steps, the eyes of many upon her. The judge regarded her with a mix of skepticism and curiosity, the same man who had once dismissed her as overly emotional. She presented her findings with precision, dismantling attempts to discredit her work piece by piece. Her tone was unwavering, her demeanor composed. The room shifted, the opposition faltered under the weight of undeniable evidence and Clara's calm authority. When the session ended, the judge offered a nod, subtle but significant. Outside, Clara exhaled. The breath she held for so long finally released. The fight was far from over, but each victory, quiet or loud, brought her closer to justice. The courtroom was hushed, the weight of every gaze pressing on Clara's shoulders as she prepared to speak once more. The judge's eyes lingered, cold and calculating, but Clara met them without flinching. Months of dismissal, doubt, and quiet battles had forged her resolve into something unbreakable. "You may proceed," the judge said, voice low but carrying the authority of tradition. Clara inhaled deeply, steadying the storm within. "The evidence is clear," she began, her tone calm but unyielding. "Financial records reveal deliberate attempts to obscure misconduct. The data does not lie." She outlined each point meticulously, weaving facts into a narrative of accountability and justice. Her voice never raised, yet every word struck like a hammer against walls of denial. The judge's expression softened, the lines of skepticism giving way to grudging respect. The courtroom absorbed her presence, strong, composed, impossible to ignore. When she finished, a heavy silence settled. Then, with a subtle nod, the judge acknowledged her testimony. Not a concession shouted from the rooftops, but a quiet recognition earned through strength and integrity. Outside the courthouse, Clara felt the weight of history shift. The fight ahead was long, but she had taken a stand, not with fury, but with unwavering dignity. Her voice, steady and clear, was breaking barriers, and the world was beginning to listen. Clara stepped into the corridor outside the courtroom, the noise of footsteps and whispered conversations wrapping around her like a cocoon. The weight of the judge's subtle nod lingered, a small crack in a fortress that had long resisted change. She pressed her lips together, holding the quiet victory close, but knowing the path ahead was still steep. Her phone buzzed, a message from Marcus lighting up the screen. "You're shifting the ground. Beneath them, stay steady." She smiled faintly, fingers hovering over the keyboard before replying, "Every step counts." In the days that followed, Clara's routine became a relentless rhythm. Meetings with attorneys, late nights poring over documents, calls with community. Leaders, all woven together by the common thread of resilience. The opposition tried new tactics, subtle undermining, questioning her motives, casting doubt not on the facts, but on her character. One afternoon, Rick, the security guard whose suspicious eyes had once shadowed her every move, approached quietly. His face was softer now, edged with respect. "I misjudged you," he said simply. Clara met his gaze steadily. "Thank you. We all grow." The moment was brief but profound. A small victory in a long struggle. Then came the news. Partial funding. For the project had been approved. Not everything, but a foothold in the fortress. Standing on the rooftop of the building, Clara gazed out over the city lights, each one a story, a hope, a challenge. She thought of those silenced voices carried with her, the ones who fought quietly so she could stand loud and clear. The fight was far from over, but now she was no longer alone. Her voice, calm, composed and unwavering, had begun to change the narrative. Justice, she understood, was often found in the quiet persistence of one determined soul. The room was thick with tension, the kind that settled over you before a storm breaks. Clara sat quietly, her hands folded on the table, eyes fixed ahead. The judge's gaze lingered a moment too long, searching for cracks. But she was a fortress, calm, composed, unyielding. "You may proceed," the judge said, voice cold but resigned. Clara took a breath, steadying the tempest inside. "The evidence shows clear patterns of misconduct," she began, her tone precise, each word weighted with truth. "Funds were diverted, records altered. This was not accidental, it was calculated." Her voice did not rise. It didn't need to. The room hung on every word. The power in restraint far more piercing than any outburst. The judge's eyes flickered, an almost imperceptible thaw. "Your testimony is noted." Clara nodded, a quiet victory passing between them. As she left, the courtroom whispers followed her. Not all kind, but none could deny the impact. She walked with measured steps, carrying the strength of those silenced before her. Outside, the city's pulse was steady, relentless. She looked up at the sky, the weight in her chest easing slightly. The battle was far from over, but with each calm word, each steadfast stance, Clara was breaking the silence, claiming her space in a world that tried to keep her quiet. Clara stepped into the bustling hallway, the murmurs of the crowd swirling around her like a storm she had learned to navigate. Her shoulders bore the invisible weight of history, the generations of women silenced before her, the countless voices dismissed as too emotional or too sensitive. Yet here she was, unbroken, her presence a quiet declaration that she belonged. Her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "You held your ground. Proud of you." She smiled faintly, fingers tapping a slow reply. "The fight is just beginning." Later, in a small conference room, Clara convened with her legal team. Faces familiar, marked by determination and fatigue. Papers and reports cluttered the table, a testament to months of relentless work. "They're pushing back," one attorney warned, attempting to discredit the findings with technicalities and procedural delays. Clara's eyes narrowed. "We meet resistance with resilience. Our power lies in our persistence and the truth we hold." Marcus nodded. "Justice is not won in shouting matches, but in steady resolve." The team shared a silent understanding. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but their collective strength was unwavering. Days turned into weeks. Clara's work became a rhythm of careful preparation and unwavering focus. The opposition's tactics grew more subtle. Whispers in corridors, skeptical glances, attempts to undermine her credibility. One afternoon, Rick, the security guard who once eyed her with suspicion, approached quietly. His voice was low but sincere. "I misjudged you," he admitted. "You're stronger than I thought." Clara met his gaze steadily. Thank you. We all learn. The moment was brief but significant. A quiet crack in the wall of resistance. Then came the news. Partial. Funding approved. Not a complete victory, but a foothold. Standing on the rooftop, Clara gazed over the city lights, a tapestry of hope and challenge. The fight was far from over, but the voice that had been dismissed as too emotional was now a force demanding to be heard. Clara sat alone in the quiet office late into the night. The soft glow of her desk lamp illuminated the scattered reports, each page a testament to her tireless pursuit of truth. The city outside hummed with life, indifferent to the battles waged within these walls. Yet inside her, a fierce resolve burned bright. Her phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. Remember, strength isn't in loudness, but in standing firm. She typed back slowly, every step forward is a victory. The days blurred into a relentless rhythm of meetings, testimonies, and careful strategy. The opposition grew more subtle, weaving doubt and distraction where overt attacks failed. But Clara's calm demeanor and unwavering focus became a shield, deflecting every attempt to undermine her. One afternoon, Rick, the security guard who had once eyed her with suspicion, paused by her door. His usual stern expression softened. "I misjudged you," he said quietly. Clara met his gaze steadily. "We all grow," she replied with a small smile. The moment was brief but profound, a silent acknowledgement of change. Then came the news. The board approved partial funding for the project. Not the full amount, but enough to keep the fight alive. Standing on the rooftop, Clara looked out over the city lights, a mosaic of hope and challenge. The battle was far from over, but her voice, once dismissed as too emotional, had become a force no one could ignore. The courtroom air was heavy with anticipation, every eye fixed on Clara as she rose to deliver her testimony once again. The judge's expression was unreadable, a mask forged through years of authority and guarded skepticism. Yet beneath that surface, Clara sensed a subtle shift, a crack in the wall of dismissal. She inhaled deeply, steadying the storm of emotions that threatened to rise, and began with unwavering clarity. "The audit reveals a pattern of deliberate obfuscation," she said, voice calm but resolute. "Funds were redirected, records altered to conceal wrongdoing. These actions betray trust and violate the law." Her words fell like stones, precise and unyielding, carving a path through layers of denial. The judge's eyes flickered, his stern facade momentarily softened. The courtroom held its breath, caught between resistance and the undeniable force of truth. When Clara finished, she met the judge's gaze directly. "I am here to uphold justice, not to be dismissed because of perceptions about my demeanor." A heavy silence followed, charged with meaning. The judge nodded slightly, an unspoken concession. As she gathered her documents, Clara felt the weight of history shift. The path ahead was arduous, but every step forward was a testament to resilience and dignity. Outside, the city pulsed with life, unaware of the quiet revolution unfolding within its halls. Clara walked forward, not with anger, but with unwavering strength, and the world began to listen. The late afternoon sun slanted through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the courtroom floor. Clara stood quietly, hands folded, heart steady. The judge's gaze held hers, less sharp now, edged with something close to reluctant respect. "You may step down, Ms. James," he said, voice softer than before. She nodded, collecting her papers. With deliberate calm, every step toward the exit felt like a small victory carved out of years of silence and dismissal. Outside the courthouse, the city hummed, unaware of the battles fought and won within these walls. Clara paused, breathing in the crisp air, feeling the weight inside her shift from burden to quiet power. Her phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. "You've changed more than just this case. You've changed minds." She smiled, fingers trembling slightly as she typed back, "This is only the beginning. The fight ahead would be long, filled with unseen struggles and whispered doubts." But Clara knew now the strength she carried, the power of speaking truth calmly, firmly, and without apology. Justice, she realized, was not always loud. Sometimes it was the quiet insistence that refused to be ignored, and in that silence, Clara's voice echoed the loudest.